Hello, welcome back to the review for chapter 3. I'm going to start with question 7 on this video. So it says for the polynomials p and d, write in the form of p is equal to d of x times some polynomial q of x plus r of x. So basically I wanted to take p of x and divide it by d of x and see what that divides into a polynomial plus some kind of a remainder. So if we use synthetic division, I want to divide by a factor. So I know that x squared minus 1 actually factors into x minus 1, x plus 1. So I could use either of these to start as far as what my factoring is going to be. So I'm going to start with just 1. And I'm going to use my synthetic division for 0, because I have to have a place value for my x to the third that I don't have a term for, a negative 3x, 1, and minus 1. And I bring down my 4. I get 1 times 4 is 4. I add to the 0, 4. 1 times 4 is a negative 3. I'm sorry, 1 times 4 is 4. Add, I get 1. 1 times 1 is 1. Add, I get 2. And 2, I get a remainder of 1. I just realized using synthetic isn't going to work because it's not evenly divisible. So we're going to have to use long division. So x squared minus 1, 4x to the 4th minus 3x squared plus x minus 1. I just thought about that. So I can multiply x squared times 4 here. And so I'm going to have subtracting 4x. Oh, I got to multiply by 4x squared. So it'd be 4x to the 4th, and then minus 4x. It'll be minus a minus, so plus 4x squared. So those cancel, and we're left with just an x squared. And then I can multiply just times 1 to get to x squared. So 1 would be minus the x squared. 1 times a negative 1 is a negative 1, but I'm going to add it. So 1. So those cancel, and then I've got just the x comes down, and then minus 1 and 1 cancel. So I have a remainder of x. So this is going to be my d of x, which is x squared minus 1 is my d of x. And then my q of x is this 4x squared plus 1 right here, plus my remainder is just x. That was a little tricky. Okay, 8 says, use the fact that x equals 2 is a 0 of this polynomial to completely factor p of x. Okay, we can definitely use synthetic division here. So 2, 1, a negative 13, and 6 are my coefficients. So I'm going to bring down the 2. So 2 times 2 is 4. And I get 5. 2 times 5 is 10. We get a negative 3. 2 times a negative 3 is a negative 6, and we add to 0. So that factors. So I know that it factors into x minus 2. And then this is 2x squared plus 5x minus 3. So I could try to factor that again by looking up possible factors, or I'm going to try to factor with guess and check. So I'm going to say plus 3 minus 1. So 3 times 2 is 6, minus 1 is a positive 5x, and 3 and a negative 1 multiplied to make a negative 3. So I have x minus 2, 2x minus 1 is a factor, and x plus 3 is a factor. Okay. Number 9 says Find all the real zeros. So I'm looking for just real zeros. So my possibilities are all my factors of 10, so 10 and 1, and then plus or minus 2, plus or minus 5 are all of my possibilities. So I'm going to start with a possibility of 1. Actually, I'm going to try to factor first. I can pull out an x squared from these two, and I have an x plus 2 left. And if I factor out a negative 5 from here, I'll have an x plus 2 left. Okay, so it actually factors into x plus 2, comes out of both, and then I have x squared minus 5 left. So that means that's x equal to a negative 2 is a 0. And then if I set this equal to 0, we get x squared equals 5. And so x equals plus or minus the square root of 5. So those are my other two zeros. So there they are. I'm glad I thought about factoring, because this would have been a lot of guess and check to get started. So number 10 says, solve this equation. So I'm going to move everything to the left. So I have 3x cubed plus 8x squared plus 3x minus 2 equals 0. And I don't think I can factor. So my possibilities are plus or minus 2, plus or minus 1 from this negative 2, and then plus or minus 2 over the leading coefficient 3. I'm going to start with 1. I hope 1 is 1. So the way you can tell is if you do f of 1 and we get 0, then you know it's a 0. So 3 times 1 cubed plus 8 times 1 squared plus 3 times 1 minus 2. It's going to be 3 plus 8 is 11 plus 3 is 14 minus 2 is 12. So 1 is not. What about a negative 1? So 3 times a negative 1 cubed plus 8 times a negative 1 squared plus 3 times a negative 1 minus 2. So in that case, we'll have a negative 3 plus 8 minus 3 minus 2. And that equals 0. So a negative 1 is a 0. Okay, so I'm going to use synthetic division to use my negative 1. So 3, 8, 3, and negative 2. So bring down my 3. We have a negative 3 adds to make 5, multiplies to make a negative 5, adds to make 2. And negative 1, negative 2 is 2, and that adds to make 0. So we have 3x squared plus 5x minus 2 left. Okay. And so I think 3x squared plus 5x minus 2 will factor. So 3 times 2 is 2 is 6. Minus 1 is a positive 5x in the middle, and then that multiplies to make a negative 2. Okay, so that means I've got x equal to negative 1 is a factor, is a solution for 0. And then x equal to negative 2, that's this one. And then we set 3x minus 1 equal to 0, and we get 3x equals 1, and so x equals 1/3. So x equals 1/3 is the other solution. Okay, catch me back for more videos for the review.